Hey folks, Evil DM here, and I'm back with another, well, actually this is going to be the start of a new series. It's going to be part of my Palladium series, another game that I enjoyed playing back in the late 80s, early 90s before I got into Rifts and other things. I actually picked up playing Palladium role-playing, or Palladium Fantasy, as it later was called, right around the time that second edition was in full swing of Advanced Dungeons & Dragons. I did go over to Advanced Dungeons & Dragons 2nd Edition. I did play it for a little while, and I really didn't like the changes they made. So I kind of looked around, and I met a person in high school named Desmond, and he showed me Palladium role-playing game, as it was called just then. It wasn't fantasy just yet, even though we've all called it Palladium Fantasy, as far as I can recall. But anyway, you can get the books pretty cheap, the 1st edition books, because I'm going to focus on 1st edition Palladium role-playing game here today. And I wanted to do this video to talk about character creation, because there is really no... The book is kind of all over the place as far as character creation. When you get to 2nd edition of this game of Palladium Fantasy, it's a little more laid out, a little more easier to make up a character as far as following the guidelines in the book. And there's nothing for 1st edition. There's also no real character sheets for 1st edition out there that you can get unless you get the High Seas book, I believe it is, and it has a really haphazard character sheet in there. So I did make my own here as well, just so you can see what it looks like. And I'm going to go through the process with you. Now, I did pre-write things in ahead of time because I didn't want to take up like an hour and a half doing this, because sometimes it could take a long time making characters in Palladium Fantasy or Palladium role-playing. So I pre-filled it in with all the information. We'll go over it. So I didn't want to bore you with those little details. But anyway, you can pick up the book on Amazon or, used bookstores for relatively cheap. Get it through DriveThruRPG, which I'll add a little link in the notes below. A lot of these books that you find, including mine, just go to crap. I mean, do I have a book example? Somewhere right now, but they're usually torn up. I only have one good, the black cover Palladium, the original one. Was like a 5th edition printing that actually made it through moves and everything like that. The rest of them are all torn to crap because of use and the cover peeling off of heat and everything like that. So I'm not going to get into the history of Palladium Fantasy today. I just wanted to focus on 1E character creation. I made up a little guide that you can follow, and let's get on the road with that. So with that said, first thing you want to do is decide what type of race you want to play and what type of campaign the GM has and what they're going to allow, because they may not want every race played. It's up to the GM. They may only say certain ones are available, but whatever, check with the GM. So you head over to page 188, and you can basically pick whatever race you want. Gnomes, troglodytes, kobolds, goblins, hobgoblins, orcs, changelings, ogres, humans, trolls. But for today, we're just going to go with the basic human class and the human race, because it's pretty much simpler to do that. When we go do that, we start back here. It's probably the easiest place to look. Here's another example on page 5 of all the races. But if you want a more detailed description, you want to go to page 188 to 201 for a very detailed definition of everything. This is just kind of an overview and what they feel about each other. Remember in other editions how they have the race overviews and they give you a little blurb about it. But if you want to read more about it, you have to find another book to go in depth. Well, this has it in the book in the back, so you don't have to go. You get a little height comparison chart there. Here's a better look at it. So what you want to do to determine attributes is you're basically going to check this chart here, racial attribute chart. Now, the lifespan of a human is only 60 years, and there's an 8% chance that they'll resort to cannibalism, or your guy is a cannibal, but most GMs that I played with did not use cannibalism rules. That's really up to your GM. He'll make you roll for it or he won't. Whatever. Each one of the attributes listed here you have to roll, but the humans have a special way of rolling things. As you can see, there's a 3 across here. That's how many 6-sided dice you would roll for each individual straight down the row. Now, if you happen to get a substantial amount of 16, 17, or 18, you get to roll a 4th die and add it to that. And that's the only race that allows you to do that, unless one of the races has a 2, which like right here, a hobgoblin. If you roll 12, you get to roll an extra 6 and get to see if you get up to 18. But that's the only exception on the rule there, because they don't allow it for the other races. Only humans get that exceptional ability. Then you can look over here and see your average height and everything like that, what you want to do. As you can see, I already picked human. I did pick my class, but I didn't want to get to that just yet because, you know, just want to write down the bonuses and do the stats for it. Also, I got all my numbers here. I got 11, 14, 11, 15, 22, 15, 8, and 10. Just want to find the right page here. So before we go further, IQ obviously is intelligence. ME is mental endurance. MA is mental affinity. Physical strength is PS. Physical prowess is PP. Physical endurance is PE. Physical beauty, PB. And speed is obviously speed. So mental endurance indicates how much mental and emotional stress your character can withstand. Mental affinity is the character's personal magnetism and charisma. They have listed examples. Many powerful men, such as Hitler and President Lincoln, were not physically attractive, possessed the magnetism personality, and I would never put Hitler and Lincoln in the same sentence, my God. Physical strength is just that, your physical raw power to do things. Your physical prowess is basically your manual dexterity, your agility of the character, and nimbleness of how you move. Your physical endurance is like basically your constitution, how much punishment you can take, how much you can withstand, how much you can resist to fatigue, diseases, and so on. Physical beauty is actually your attractiveness to other people around you. And then we go for speed, how much you can go, how fast you can go, blah, 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 blah. You also get a bonus, like I said, 16, 17, or 18. You get to roll the one more die if you are a human. So then you would check this chart over here, and obviously my guy, I rolled a 22 total for his. So he would get 22. He would get a +3. 3, 2. Parry, dodge. Yes, that is correct. Oh, sorry, that's a +4. Okay, and he would get a bonus to strike, which is also a +4. So we're looking good here. Okay. So we can automatically take those things and we can put them down here in the combat section where it says strike, parry, and dodge. Okay. We get the bonuses there. The bonus is there. The bonus is there. This is already added up, which we'll go over in a little bit. So after we do that, we rolled on the stats, we rolled on the bonuses, we decided human, so there's not really much to it. We got our bonus for our physical there. Okay, we're moving forward on the chart here. We're going to look at our hit points now because our physical endurance is a 15. Now what you do for hit points is you take this number and you roll a d6, add it together, and that's how you get your hit points. Generally, most of the GMs that I've played with will roll a d6. I mean, will tell us to do maximum hit points. Sometimes they'll tell us to roll a d6. If you roll below a 3, roll again. It depends on the GM. I'm going with max hit points here just for the demonstration. Next you'll want to do is pick your OCC, which is very important because that is basically your character class. And you're going to head to page 30, which starts the occupational character classes. Now they're broken down into men-at-arms, clergy, and then magical and things like that and so forth. So looking through here, I picked as you can see on my character sheet here, longbowman. So let's flip to the next page. Yeah, get out of here. Here's our longbowman. Now, you have requirements, don't forget. It's not exactly, well, it does require that you have these stats in the abilities, but I've seen GMs waive those things, so really just ask. So you qualify. Do I qualify 15? Am I PP? Oh, yeah, I qualify. So the things you automatically get are your OCC, your class skills. These are automatic. You get hand-to-hand, longbowman, and weapon proficiency, longbow. Those are the things you get right off the bat as your OCC skills. Now, elective skills are like your ability to do things, your class elective skills that you picked up along the way while learning your bowman ability. You get to choose 8 of them at level 1. When you get to level 3, you get to choose 3 more. When you get to level 8, you choose 3 more, and then 3 more at level 12. And there's the electives are right here. This whole big list, and you get to pick them. And I picked a whole bunch of them, but I just picked 3 to show you here for the example. And we'll go over that in just a second. Then you also have secondary skills. These are kind of like the hobbies, what you did in your spare time, what you like to do to, you know, pass the time away while you were bored, things like that. You get to pick 7 at first level, 4 at 4th level, and 4 at 10th level. Okay, now that you pick those, you're going to want to look through the list here, and you're probably not going to know what half of them do, but you can get a general idea what they do. But what you want to do is you want to head to page 19 in the book. Oops, that's alignments. My elective skills, head over to page 19. Oh, I went too far back, sorry. I was looking at the PDF. So this gives you a general... Oh, I thought they had a list. This gives you a general description of what they all do and a breakdown of each one of them. Like I picked disguise. This person is skilled in the use of costume, makeup, wax, putty, powders, dyes, blah, 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 blah. And then there's a chart afterwards. You know, here's the list I was looking for. Here you get to see the list again, but you don't exactly have access to all of these. So at level 1, I have a 20% chance and then a 2% chance. And you're like, huh? What is that? So if you go back to the skill, it says the first percentage number indicates the success ratio of convincing disguise, preventing someone from figuring you out. The second one is to recognize others in disguise. So I have a 20% chance to just jump into disguise, and that modifier can be adjusted based on the GM, based on the situation. He may throw you, 15%, 20%, 30%. Maybe somebody is wearing a crappy disguise. It gives you 50% to your 2. So really just roll the dice, your percentile dice, and tell the DM what you got. That's all. Identify tracks. Horsemanship, basically at this type of level you get general. I picked general just so I can be able to feed a horse, ride a horse without an issue. That's all it does at that type of level. And it does go, the higher you go, the more abilities you get with horsemanship. We can look right, I believe here it is, general. So we get riding, care, and feeding. I wanted that just so I can have the ability to do that. And at second level, we get to recognize quality and breed and so on and so forth. So basically all these things you get bonuses when you move up, going up. So the OCC skill, I have hand-to-hand long bowman, which is listed right over here. Because I forgot the OCC skills. I just jumped right ahead by accident. I apologize for that. So what you want to do is you get a +2 to dodge. We had a +4. Now it is a +6. Now you see how I got the +6. I got the +4 from up here. And then the +2 to dodge. And it also gives me 1 attack per round because there's no bonuses to attack until most of these people get 2nd level or 3rd level or sometimes 4th. See, there's the charts. Okay, so now that we've gotten that done, the secondary skills start on page 28. So secondary skills, here's the complete list. Now I picked carpentry and recognize poison as just 2 of them I could pick, just for example reasons. So I picked carpentry. All right, carpentry. Now we go to the actual carpentry, and we see I have a 16%, but I had a bonus of 4% because I have of my merchant background. And for the merchant background, you do that in the very beginning. You don't have to do this, but a lot of times the GM allows you to do this, so just ask. say you really want to do it, and you could do your birth order, your weight, and your age is random. It's all random stuff. You don't have to. You can also pick if you really want. I picked merchant, so it gave me the ability to get an additional couple percentage. Actually, that is wrong because I did not see that there. So I do apologize. That is only 16% like it should be. See, things like this happen when you don't pay attention. And you change things around just to do these little examples. But, yeah. Okay, so now that we've done that, now we head over to... We picked our skills. We picked our secondary skills. We wrote down our bonuses for our hand-to-hand combat, which is longbowman, which we've done. Why don't we head over to that page again, just so we can see. So we get a +2 to dodge only, which gives us from a 4 to a 6. We got that perfect. Okay. Now, weapon proficiency longbow is right here under missile weapons, longbow. This is 2 strike column for the S, and this is rate of fire. So we go back to the weapon proficiencies here because we get to pick a couple. And I did, which I didn't fill in here, but I put them over here just so you could see them. Because you get a certain amount, don't forget. So I get 0 to strike, no parry involved with this, and I do get a rate of fire of 2. Okay. I also had weapon proficiency short swords, which if we jump back, short swords, level 1. I get +1 to strike, +1 to parry, and 0 if I'm throwing it. So we go over here, +1 to strike, +1 to parry, 0 for throwing. No rate of fire because we only have 1, so I guess it would be rate of fire 1. I mean, unless you have... Now, you can't throw multiple ones because you have to pull it out and throw it, pull it out and throw it. I also picked weapon proficiency small shields. Now, I picked... Not SW, weapon proficiency. Small shields because I wanted the ability to have a shield and be able to use it to block and throw if need be. So it's always good to have it because you can use a small shield and throw it, as you can see here. And for a small shield, you get a +1 to parry. So while you can have in my mind, a small shield, and the way I've always played is as long as you have a one-handed weapon and you have a small shield, you can do both at the same time. So if you want to parry from one side using that shield, that option is always there. Now that we've gotten those two things, we want to put our longbow over here under our combat, and our short sword under our combat as well. Now that does a D6 because we're going to page 44. And we can see our armor and stuff like that, but I want to go and start with the longbow here. Here we go, longbow. Does 2 to 12 damage, which is 2d6. Okay. So automatically we get no bonuses to strike, but we already have a 4, so we get a +4 there. We don't have a parry, and we don't have a dodge for that. All right, but we do have a rate of fire of 2, don't forget. The short sword, which is right here, is a 1d6 damage. We wrote down 1d6. Now, for that, we do get a +1 to parry, and we do get a +1 to strike, but nothing to dodge. So we put a 0 there. Or what we could do is we can make it 6, because that's our default. So, +1 makes that a 5. So we're striking with a bonus of a 5. And when we're striking, we're rolling a d20 and adding that bonus to it. Pretty cool. Okay, now that we've gotten those things down, we got the shield down. All right. Next, we're going to go back to the armor. Now, I could pretty much use whatever armor because I'm a men-at-arms, or men-at-arms as they call them. And they're allowed to use anything without major restrictions. But if you're picking skills like prowl and things like that, you're going to get a negative modifier for it. Like anything to do with involving noise or moving around, you get negative modifiers. But since you only start with a certain amount of money, based upon how your, class is and your social background and everything like that, I picked a soft leather, which gives me an armor rating of 9, and it gives me a structural damage capacity of 20. Now, what does that mean exactly? Because you're probably wondering, okay, what is AR? AR is your armor resistance. That's the number that the person attacking you has to roll higher than to hit you and affect your hit points. SDC is how many hit points the actual armor itself has. So if I'm rolling over a 9 and hitting you and I'm doing damage, it's going to go to the SDC first before it hits your hit points. Once the SDC runs out, then your hit points start getting affected. It's kind of like an armor class to the armor class, I guess. It's the only way I could think of it, how to explain that. Okay, now that we got that, then we go over and we just basically buy the rest of the equipment. Now, for the rest of the equipment, clothing, things like that, generally with that, when I'm running a game, I'll give people the Adventurer's Guide kit or whatever, which, you know, consists of torches, rations, tents, like a sleeping bag if they don't want a tent, a rope, maybe if they really want a belt and they want certain type of boots, I'll work with them on it. I don't want players to be walking around with barely anything on, so I let them go in here and pick a few things out that would be just common things. I'll say, hey, take 20 gold and just pick things out. If it gets more than that, let me know. Just try not to bog yourself down, because it's just a game. We all want to have fun. We don't want to worry about things. And that's basically how a character is rolled up. I think in the future edition, we'll talk more about, or for a future episode of this vidcast, whatever you want to call it. We'll talk a little bit more about how the game works and some combat maybe, and then we'll go over the lands and the classes and things like that. But I think I may do it from a second edition point of view as opposed to a first edition point of view. While I do like first edition, I think second edition is a lot easier to explain things and find things. 1E is a little bit more difficult to do things in. But I did not see any videos on the actual basics of how to make a character for 1E along with a halfway decent character sheet, because they're hard to find. But anyway, I hope that you learned something today. I'm sure I probably forgot something, and I'm probably sure you'll tell me about it as the time goes by. You guys will probably say, hey, you forgot to do this or that. And I'll be like, you're probably right. Because it's been like 25 plus years since I've done this, and I really enjoyed this game a lot. So hopefully you will too. Also, just to point out here, some person was asking me the other day about how do they level up, and these are the experience charts right here. Each individual class has it. So you could actually technically put /2100 here to let you know as you're going up what your next level is going to be. Won't be 2101. I guess you could do it that way. But that's how to make a longbowman, and hopefully you've learned something here today. And as this goes on, we'll learn more about the system and how it works again. So as I always say, keep it original, keep it old school, and good night, everybody.